Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Rhetoric with Shakia. I'm Shakia. And in this episode, we're going to talk about Season 5, Episode 39, Love After Lockup. Let's get into it. First up, we have Zeruiah and Troy. This episode begins with the two of them arguing. They have been arguing for the past 2 or 3 episodes at this point. Troy says after Zeruiah lets him back into the room, it's this whole back and forth thing. Troy says that he apologizes for going out. He apologizes for leaving the house essentially for so long, not communicating with anybody, and that he just needed some space essentially. She's like, look, you can't be doing this. And how does Yana even know you left the house? And he's like, I don't know how she knows I left the house. Well, Troy, either you told her or Karen told her. We know Karen told her at some point, but by the time we hear the conversation with Karen and Yana, it sounds as if Yana was already made aware that he had left the house, unless they left that part out of the show, where Karen maybe initially told Yana, hey, Troy left, see if you can reach out and find out where he is. Because in a previous episode when Zeruiah and Karen were in the car with one another looking for Troy, Karen was on the phone with Yana and said, oh, he just needed a walk. And Zeruiah's like, how does she know? This is what I mean. This is the issue. They're clearly talking with each other and he's downplaying it. So now fast forward to this week's episode. This is what Zeruiah is bringing up to Troy. How does Yana know our business? Why is Yana talking to your mother about the affair? She's like, you already know that I had an affair. You already know what happened, and you said that we were moving forward. So again, he eventually apologizes to her. He tries to get her to calm down and relax. They're just a mess. So he wants a mess because it feels unnecessary. This entire argument just felt unnecessary because it escalated, because of the way it escalated. It did not need to go that far. It didn't. They could have already been on the road to Buffalo. However, they weren't. They were still at this house. And then we see Zeruiah is, wiping off her face. I guess she's wiping off the makeup that she put on and that we saw in the previous episode. But then because she decides to, of course, she ends up going to Buffalo with them. She has to now reapply the makeup. I think she does it in the car. I think. But anyway, before that even happens, before they leave out, Troy, again, he apologizes and he is begging her, please put back on this ring. Please put back on this ring. She says, I'm going to put this ring on. And this is going to symbolize that you are not going to leave. Okay. Sure. Go for it. Go for it. So she heads to Buffalo with Troy and Karen. And essentially, Zeruiah says, look, I'm going to go stand by my man. I'm standing by my man. So she takes herself to Buffalo. They arrive and it's a gathering. It's a hangout. It's a cookout for Troy. What looks like a welcome home, kind of get together. And there are some of Troy's family members there, one being his sister, who says, she lets us know that she is not happy that Troy is in Syracuse. She wishes that he and Zeruiah would have come to Buffalo, that they would have moved to Buffalo because that's where Troy has his support. That's where his family and his friends are. Troy lets us know that we can actually see in his confessional scene, he's talking about his daughter, and you can tell he's excited to see his daughter, probably a little nervous too. He mentions that when he went away, she was about 7 months and now she's 7. And so he's excited to see her because he's missed out on so much of her life because he was incarcerated for all of those years. And he becomes tearful as he's talking about his daughter. Of course, he has the motivation for himself, but also he recognizes the impact of his actions, that his actions don't just impact him, but it impacts his entire family, specifically his daughter. And so I'm really hoping that he sees that and he continues to make better decisions so that he's not arrested again. Yana, of course, shows up to the cookout, to the hangout, the party, because she's bringing his daughter. But before she comes, Zeruiah asks, I think she asked Troy's sister, so who's bringing little Troy? Because Troy's daughter is named after Troy. Who's bringing little Troy to the party? And somebody was like, her mother. And Zeruiah was like, oh. And then that's when she says, I came here because I'm going to stand by my man. Okay, girl. So Yana eventually shows up with little Troy. And then WeTv, so shady, they cut the episode. So we have to wait next week, hopefully, to see the interaction, to see what happens once, they greet one another and all of that. They have been dragging these storylines out in a way that is just annoying and boring. But you know what I am waiting for? Life After Lockup. I saw the trailer for that. Girl, it looks good. And Zeruiah and Troy will be on Life After Lockup, so we'll see more of them. Maybe this is why they dragged this one storyline out so much, because we'll see how things unfold when they, participate in Life After Lockup. Okay, so I probably missed something because at some point I just got bored by the storyline. I'm getting a little bored with the show, and I think it's because they are just dragging it out so much. Next up, we have True and Shantae. True and Shantae drive to Cape so that True can see what's going to happen because he caught a violation. Because he didn't parole where he said he would be, which was to his mother's house, but he and his mom had a disagreement. He could no longer stay there. And I guess he didn't follow proper procedure. So now he's facing either incarceration or house arrest. He has Shantae go with him just in case he is arrested and she can help settle some things. Also, I think he wanted to, maybe save face a little bit. And I said this in my last episode, show that he's a changed man, he's a family man, all that jazz. So make a long story short, also I find it what I found interesting was the fact that he said he would make sure Shantae had access to his bank accounts and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. All right now, because listen, if things got to get handled, things got to get handled, because allegedly she's pregnant with twins. Do y'all think she's pregnant? I know I talked about this in the episode, my last recap, because she went to the doctor, but she didn't actually get the ultrasound. And I don't know if she had an ultrasound, but she said she was pregnant with twins, but that was the first appointment. But I could have missed something, because if you're pregnant with twins, I imagine at that point you had been to the doctor, right? So do we think that she is pregnant? Do we think, obviously if she is, I don't want anything to happen to the babies or anything. I was just curious, because also the place where she went, I'm like, this is an interesting place. But it could have been an alternative to a traditional doctor's office. I always like to give the benefit of the doubt, I just thought that was interesting. So we find out that True, he did not get arrested. First of all, he was late. But when he was going in, before he went into the building, he was like, look, this could be a setup. Maybe there's a car waiting for me and they're going to just jump out and arrest me. So he was definitely feeling nervous, because I'm hoping he realized the seriousness of what was going on, especially because he apparently has kids on the way, and he also has a son that he mentioned in the last episode. Fast forward, True gets house arrest. He is not incarcerated. He gets house arrest, which is great, because hopefully then he could still be involved in Shantae's pregnancy to the best of his ability. Maybe virtual, he can join the doctor's appointments virtually or what have you, and stay connected to his son that he told us about. Okay, so he gets house arrest. Where does he go? Well, he goes to his friend Peppa's house. Who is Peppa? Peppa is the friend of Kells. Who is Kells? The wife of Troy, not Troy, True. Ooh, I'm messing up names. Kells is the wife of True's brother who happens to be incarcerated. Kells and True seem really close with each other. I mean, they go out to, Shantae was saying they talk to each other. They go out to dinner with each other, like they hang out with each other. Shantae did say that she doesn't suspect that there's anything going on with them because of the bond that True has with his brother. So Peppa is one of Kells' friends, and that is where True is going to live in Peppa's house for the duration of his house arrest. It's not clear how long he's going to be on house arrest. True said that his PO essentially told him, you have to prove yourself. That will determine how long you are on house arrest. So maybe if he does what he has to do, he doesn't have to spend the remainder of his sentence on house arrest. But of course, that would require him to do what he has to do. So Shantae and True and Kells, they go to what looks like maybe a diner. They get something to eat. They're talking. Shantae seems uncomfortable during this interaction. She seems uncomfortable. And maybe it's because Kells and True are so close. Shantae did mention that she feels that Kells enables True, which is definitely a possibility. And Shantae doesn't like that. She wants him to be able to do things on his own. And Kells sometimes gets in the way of that. Again, he's excited. He's like, I'm locked up now. They meet up with Kells at the diner. They eat. They talk about where he's going to go for house arrest. And then Shantae is like, well, look, I think it's a good idea for me to meet Peppa, which is true. If he's going to be at Peppa's house, I want to know who Peppa is. I want to also see what's going on up in this house, right? Are there things that they need to be concerned about? We don't know because we haven't met Peppa yet. Again, WeTv is stretching this out. So we won't see Peppa until, if we do see Peppa at all, until the next episode. But that is essentially it. Again, nothing really significant occurred in this episode for the two of them, except the fact that we learn that True is not going to be arrested, which is a good thing, as I said before, because now he can be around to the best of his ability for his family and whatnot. But not really anything too significant. We'll see what happens. We'll see how it unfolds in the show, because again, this is a show. So I want us to remember that. We don't know what these people doing. We don't know what these people are doing outside of the show. They could be booed up right now, laughing at us for talking about them, or laughing at me for talking about them. Anyway, next up we have Arthur and Hope. This week, guess what? Arthur is no longer a secret because Hope finally introduces him to her family. First, Hope goes to the restaurant alone and she meets up with her two sisters. And baby, they asked her all types of questions. And at first it did come off a little judgmental. They were making jokes about, Arthur not having a job. But some of the questions, a lot of the questions and statements they made, honestly, were pretty valid. And they're concerned about Hope's relationship with Arthur because Hope apparently does not have a great track record with her love life, with who she dates, because they were like, oh God, when she said, I'm dating somebody, I have a boyfriend, it's somebody that you know, and they're like, a repeat? Who? The one with the wife? The one with the busted up window? The one we had to pull up on? The one? And she's like, no, but y'all do know him.
We met before he was incarcerated.
And they're like, oh, we know about him. And then then Hope lets them know he was just let out about 2 or 3 months ago. He got arrested again. That's what her sisters are saying. He got arrested again. But again, they had valid questions. They asked her questions from every which direction, which, listen, she probably needs, okay, to help her and her decision to move forward with Arthur, but also to help her perhaps navigate what she has going on in her own life. Again, Hope is pretty young. Then her grandparents show up, and Arthur shows up as well, and now they're all talking. And so her grandfather is like, well, how did you all meet? And he is like, well, I was incarcerated. And the grandfather lets us know, I was a CO, so I know what goes down. So what's going to change this time? Because you already were in there before. So it's not like this was your first rodeo. What's going to change? And Arthur was like, look, I saw some things this go around that I never want to see again. I never want to go back to that place. Arthur, I am rooting for you. Regardless of what happens with you and Hope, I am rooting for you. And I really hope that you make good decisions, Arthur. Like, he does. Arthur seems like a good dude. He seems like a good dude. Come on, I want you to win. I want you to win. So they're asking Arthur all these questions, right? Again, what are his intentions? What are his plans in order to earn money? Is he looking for work? How can he be a fashion designer? Or how can he fund his dream if he don't have no money? Valid. And his sisters, Hope's sisters were like, look, however this plays out for you, because they were like, we want you to want this and want to do better for yourself. Not for us, not for Hope, but for yourself. They were like, because whatever happens with you is whatever happens. Like, we want you to win, but at the end of the day, we still gonna be good. So do this for yourself, which I respect. But Arthur, which he seemed to receive what they were saying, fairly well, but he was disappointed, and I can understand why. He was disappointed, it seemed, in Hope, because Hope did not really speak all that much. She didn't come to his defense. She did not add anything that would show her support of Arthur. And he was like, yo, I would go to bat for her, essentially. Like, I get in arguments over her, and she didn't defend me at all. Again, it just seems that the two of them keep missing the mark, so to speak. Like, they keep missing each other with the way they communicate, with the way they support each other. It's not in alignment. And that's not the worst thing in the world. It just requires honest communication and intentional effort. So there's still, some hope there that they could get it together and be genuine with each other and be honest with each other and support each other. We gonna see, honey. But that's Hope and Arthur. Next up, Bianca and Daniel. Bianca, she's getting under my skin. I find it hard to actually like Bianca. I think it's because she seems a little bratty and immature. Bianca is also young, so I do want to give her grace. She's also really young, and we can tell because the decisions she's making, it just doesn't seem... I don't know how this is going to work out for Bianca. I really don't. The family continues to be concerned about her drinking. She continues to say she gonna drink, which is what I mean by, look, there are ways where her age shows. And her, I think being naive. Her cousin, she and Daniel's cousin are talking by the pool about Daniel having a relapse while he was incarcerated. And she's like, well, he relapsed on fentanyl, but it wasn't intentional. Like, he didn't mean to do it. Okay, okay, Bianca, sure. She also says that she's going to continue to drink because she likes drinking. And Daniel's cousin says, I think she might have a drinking problem. And he's concerned. He seems to really be concerned about their relationship and how it might impact Daniel. Bianca is upset because Daniel's family members are going to be at his release. And she's like,
We're gonna have our first kiss in front of them. I mean, it should have just been me there.
I'm sorry. I think it's okay if his mom wants to be there to see her son. But everything gotta be about Bianca. So, and while they are waiting, so she arrives late and they're like, oh, where's Bianca? So Bianca shows up, and while they're waiting for Daniel to come out, that's where she continues to have a conversation with with two of Daniel's cousins. I can't remember. I think the guy is Robert, but I could be making that up. Sometimes I just make up names. But anyway, the cousin mentions that Daniel's female cousin, whose name I cannot remember right now, is engaged. And Bianca's like, well, I'm engaged too. Do you not consider that an engagement? And he's like, no. He goes, how are you guys engaged? He proposed to me. And so his cousin is like, okay. And so Bianca's like, I don't really think he likes me all that much. I think he's like tolerating me. Girl, we're all tolerating you at this point, because what are you doing? What are you doing? But again, she's young. And I think this is just going to be a significant learning experience for her. WeTv, again, dragging this out. We still haven't seen Daniel be released. They have been dragging this out. The end of the episode, the man, we still don't see him. They allude to the fact that he's coming out of the building. They're like, oh, I think that's him. And then the episode is over. So we still have not been officially introduced to Daniel. I mean, I know there were the conversations as he was having meeting visits with Bianca and whatnot, but it's not the same. And so I'm like, okay, WeTv, what are y'all doing? Moving on, Christine and Julian. Christine, aka Chris 50. I don't know what that's about, but she said they call her 50 in prison. Why? I don't know. Is it because of her age? Like, why? Why were they calling her 50? I don't know. I actually can't remember how old Christine is. And if she did say why they called her 50, I don't know, because I lost interest. If she let us know why they call her Chris 50, I'm not really sure, because I wasn't all that interested in this episode. It just seemed like a long continuation of the previous episode. And I'm like, guys, move forward. She makes flyers because we know that she's going to do a little bit of comedy. She makes flyers, and by makes flyers, she draws them out, which is okay. However, she's not that artistic. So it looks like, and this is no tea, no shade to Christine, but remember when we did talent shows in school and we'd have to create the posters, and that's what it looked like. But again, it's not artistic. And I'm like, girl, you could have went and did something real quick on the computer, printed it out, or had somebody else write it. Even if somebody else would have written it and made it look a little better, But that's not what happened. She's upset because Julian is saying, I don't think this is the best time for you to pursue this right now. And she goes, this is not the conversation I thought we would be having, because she wanted to know, hey, are you going to make it to the show? And he's like, I'm really not sure. I have a lot of things to do. He's still interviewing for jobs. He goes, I'm not sure. And she is upset by that. And I get it. We just got finished talking about Hope and Arthur and supporting, your partner. And Christine wants Julian to support her. Julian makes a valid point. He says, you are taking time away from picking up more shifts. Right now, it would be helpful if we had more money to make sure bills are paid. She does not want to hear that. She gets up, she starts walking away. She's like, that's not what I want to talk about. This conversation is going in a different direction. And I'm like, ma'am, I get it. This is something you want to pursue. That's fine. I am all for following your dreams. And yet, don't be so dismissive because you want to be able to pay your bills. You want to be able to keep a roof over your head. You want to be able to eat, meals during the day. So don't be so dismissive over what Julian is saying. But she didn't want to hear it. Fast forward, she shows up at the spot where she's going to do this comedy. She's like, oh, let's take a shot. Ma'am, And this is what I mean by slippery slope. I said this in my last video. Slippery slope. You're doing the comedy, you're working at a bar, or restaurant. Slippery slope. You have a history of addiction. And so the people around her were like, "Oh, are you allowed to drink?" And she goes,
Not on paper, not on my paper.
"That's not funny. What are you doing to support your sobriety? And why would you film yourself drinking if you know that goes against your release, the conditions of your release?" We don't actually see her drink though. They call her name to the stage, Chris 50. She has on this orange dress, get it, because she was incarcerated. So she's really playing that theme up, which is fine. Use your story, girl. Use your story. And then, of course, it cuts. So we won't see how she does until next week, probably. She does let us know that there was an opportunity for her to do a talent show while she was incarcerated, but she was like, no, because they're like middle schoolers. And she said so it sounded like she backed out, essentially. So she's pursuing her career despite the fact that they kind of need more money. Julian hasn't found a job just yet. And she wants Julian to show up and support her. If he doesn't, she says she doesn't know how that will affect their relationship. Well, how would homelessness affect your relationship? Obviously, she could do both, right? She could pick up extra shifts and then find ways to do her comedy career, her stand-up. I know, I get it. Next up, we have Kim and Joey. Kim lets us know that she paid $2,000 for their engagement party. This is a stressful time for them. They're planning a wedding. They're spending money. You know, it's a lot going on. And here comes Joey, bringing the drama. Kim goes, so why did I get a friend request from so-and-so, the person? They bleep out the person's name, but it's Joey's ex. And Joey is like, I don't know. The same reason why you got one the last time. Kim finds out that Joey and his ex had been texting. And first she's like, wait, how did she even get your number? He says his buddy, I think Mike, gave the ex his number. And Joey says, yeah, you know, she wanted me to download WhatsApp. Kim is like, did you? So he's being sarcastic. In the moment, he pretends to be sarcastic and he says, well, yeah, of course I did what she wanted me to do. I'm going to leave her for you. Like, come on. But then we find out he, in fact, did download WhatsApp. How do we find out? Because Kim takes Joey's phone. She's going through the text messages and she's reading some of them out loud. And she reads one of the messages from Joey to the girl. And in the message, Joey says, I downloaded the app like you told me to. And she goes, oh, so you do what she tells you to? And Joey's like, what are you talking about? This is ridiculous. Give me my phone. So he snatches the phone and he goes outside and he heads to his truck that she paid for. And he's like, man, F this. I'm over this. You go to your own engagement party. And Kim is like, are you serious, Joey? Like, what are you doing? And Joey's upset. He's upset by the whole situation. However, Joey, you wouldn't be in this situation if you were not entertaining your ex-girlfriend. You all were texting, sending messages back and forth via text, and then you were sending messages apparently via WhatsApp. So y'all had been in communication. Kim has every right to be upset about that. But also, Kim, you know Joey's track record. How do we know that you know about Joey's track record? Well, come closer. Because Kim lets us know in a previous episode that when she and Joey were younger, she messed around with Joey while he was dating her cousin. And the cousin is like, well, and she's like, well, you think he's going to be faithful now? Because he's had an issue being faithful. And Kim knows that. Joey had mentioned that to her before, that he hasn't really been faithful with any of his previous partners. So I get why Kim might be a little suspicious, but also if we can't trust our partner, why are we marrying them? That's a question to ponder. Kim, are you sure you want to get married to Joey? Are you sure? No, Kimberly. So She doesn't know if Joey has the, dare I say, capacity to be faithful to her or to be faithful in their relationship. But check this out. It's not about whether or not this person has the capability or the capacity to do so. It's a choice that you make. You get to make a choice about whether or not you are going to be faithful and honest in your relationship. That's a choice. You don't happen to fall upon cheating. But anyway, meanwhile, Joey's in the car. He's upset and he lets us know he's upset. And he's like, he's sick and tired of this. And he's going to go and meet up with his ex. And he refers to his ex as a dumb. Well, dang, Joey, all of that? Why are you going to meet up with her? He says because he needs closure. I guess Joey still is feeling some kind of way. He's upset, probably because he said this was the ex he dated back in 2009. And then he got arrested. And he got arrested back then. She would come visit him. He's like, I still got the logs with her name on it. Wow, boy, throw it away. But anyway, she would come visit him. They were still together. And then he goes, she ghosted me. And he says, just because a person goes to jail doesn't mean you leave them, doesn't mean you ghost them. Yes, it does, Joey. Like, you all were not married. You all were, fairly young at the time. So a person doesn't have to put their life on hold because you made a decision. Now, of course, this is not completely black or white. If this were a different circumstance where maybe this person was wrongly convicted, then yeah, their partner may not want to leave, right? May choose to stick by them, may choose to help them throughout this ordeal. That's not what this was. He wasn't wrongly convicted as far as what we can tell via the show. He made some choices, and as a result, he was incarcerated. Now, we also know, well, I believe it was stated, if not, it appears to be, that Joey had an issue with substances. I believe it was stated. He seems to have, yes, it was stated. He has an issue because I know that was one of the concerns when he was released. And then, when she gave him the truck and then the next day she couldn't find him and he's driving in the car saying, man, I used to drive down this street. This is where I would go get high. This is where I get my dealer, stuff like that. Maybe he didn't say that. But he said something close to it, okay? So he may have had some, issues with substance use, substance abuse, and as a result made some choices and went and got arrested. Okay, I get it. And yet that doesn't mean that somebody has to do your bid with you. They don't. They're not obligated. They get to make that choice. They get to make a choice about whether or not they are going to do your bid with you. Otherwise, that's your bid, Joey. So anyway, he says he is meeting up with this ex because he needs some closure. I guess he got to get some things off of his chest. Hopefully, he also tells her to stop texting and communicating with him and attempting to communicate with Kim. He does say that after this conversation, he's done. After this conversation, he says he never wants to talk to her again. Are we sure about that, Joe? Is that the truth? Because I remember what your friends were saying in the last episode, how you used to get down, dipping it and doing it. So I just hope you are being honest about this whole situation, even though I do not agree with Kim's decisions, like giving you her card, running through her life savings, buying you a car when you first got out, having you move in right away when she has kids. I may not agree with all of that. But, Kim seems like a decent enough person. Kim also lets us know that she had been cheated on in every relationship she's been in. And I'm just wondering, not to blame her, I'm just wondering if Kim chooses to ignore the signs, ignore the red flags. So, of course, her suspicion is heightened with this relationship because she's probably subconsciously expecting to get cheated on because that's been her experience. Can she actually trust Joey? Is Joey showing her that she can trust him? Dun, dun, dun. Is he showing her that? Listen, when she's going through his text messages, that's hard to be like, yes, I trust him 100%. Because he wasn't being honest. He didn't tell her from jump that he had been communicating with his ex. That's different if he would have had this open conversation with Kim about it, but he didn't. He waited until it was brought to his attention by Kimberly because the ex had reached out and wanted to friend her on social media, which is so odd. Like, leave them people alone. But sometimes people get messy because they want what they want and they don't care who they hurt, and that's not okay. Anyway, he says he doesn't want to see her after he talked to her this go round, like I said. And what does WeTv do? WeTV, this show, they do this build up. He's all angry driving over there. He gets to the place where they're meeting up. It looks like they're in a park and he's standing there just waiting for her to show up. And of course it cuts. So we won't see this interaction take place, I don't know, maybe for the next 2 weeks. They are just dragging it out. Why? Anyway, moving on, we have Letitia and Keith. There isn't much to say about Letitia and Keith in terms of what is shown in this episode. Essentially, Letitia lets her kids know what's going on. She lets her kids know that Keith is not coming home. Her little one is really sad about it. And Letitia says, Keith has done more for her while he's been in prison that compared to what her biological father has done. Keith has done more for her. And I'm like, wow, what did he do? I'm curious what that looked like. Her youngest really seemed to bond with the idea of Keith as her dad. So I am hoping that, Keith is a stand-up guy, and that things are safe and good with all of them because this little girl seems to be bonded. I mean, they don't know Keith outside of prison. Do they know Keith outside of prison? I don't believe so. That's always interesting when I see these stories with, the people who invite the people who are incarcerated into their children's lives. And now this little girl refers to him as her dad. Now her oldest did not want to be bothered with the BS. Her oldest was sitting over there like, I don't give a get me out of this conversation. And they're asking her, Zeruiah, how do you feel about it? Zeruiah was like, I'm good. I'm good. And I think Zeruiah is a little suspicious. And she has every right to be a little suspicious because, again, who is this man who's about to come into y'all lives, live with y'all? Like, I get where she's coming from. Don't get me wrong, though. Letitia seems like a decent enough mom, so I don't want it to be taken, as anything other than that. It can be odd and off-putting when we have people entering into the home and you don't really know them. Now, again, I can't recall right now if Letitia and Keith knew each other outside of prison before he went in. I can't remember right now. So let me know because maybe they did. And so some things might be different. Maybe she knows him. She feels comfortable around him. She feels comfortable having her kids around him. I have that same thought about Christine. No, not Christine. Well, Christine and Julian, but Julian, ex-wife said that Christine isn't allowed to meet the kids, but they're still all in the home together, which is odd and awkward. But the same thought about Kim and Joey. She let him move in and she has these 2 kids who might grow to be attached to him. And I don't know. I'm like, perhaps she could have let him have more time outside of her house. Like maybe he could have lived somewhere else before moving into her home with her and her children. But anyway, back to Letitia and Keith. Letitia says, look, I think it's time for us to get out of here. We should move to North Carolina. I believe they live somewhere in the Midwest. I can't remember right now. But she's like, we should move to North Carolina. We should move somewhere where it's warm. And the daughter's like, we're moving. And she goes, well, yeah, there's something going on with the house. and we can't stay here. The owners weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing, and so we can't stay here. And I feel like this would be a great start for all of us. Now, Nariah, Letitia's oldest daughter, her father is involved in her life, and Letitia says that they are really close. So that's also probably one of the reasons why Nariah isn't that welcoming or open to the idea of Keith, because she already has her dad. She has that person in her life, you know? And so maybe she doesn't necessarily feel as if she needs Keith right now, which is totally fair. So Letitia does say that she's going to talk to Nariah's dad about possibly moving, because I imagine that's going to impact their relationship. They would have to work out some agreement because, again, Letitia says that Nariah and her dad are really close and they spend time together. And so we absolutely don't want to disrupt that. She deserves stability, you know, with her biological parent, with her biological father. So they are moving somewhere. Keith at this point still has not been released. She's obviously, because I started off by saying Letitia was letting her girls know that Keith wasn't coming home as soon as they were hoping that he would be released. So he still hasn't been released. So we're waiting for that. We're waiting to see how this works out. Is he gonna want to move? You know, how is this all gonna work? We don't know yet. We will find out when, I would say during the next episode, but knowing WeTv, we won't. I guess we'll see who comes back for life after lockup, and then perhaps we'll get to see the unfolding of some of these relationships. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts about this episode? Did you feel how I felt in terms of this is just dragging? It's dragging, and it's dragging in a way where it's not all that entertaining. So let me know what your thoughts are. I would absolutely love to hear from you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate you for being here. Until next time, bye for now.